Hey, it's Xavier with Ebony Warrior Studios. I wanted to do like a mini episode um because I had seen something on Instagram that really made me want to talk about like who I am, my politics, air quotes, and what drives me, what makes me want to do the things that I do, in this life. So, starting off, what really prompted this conversation, talking to myself essentially, what really prompted this was I saw a video of this fascist in one of those Jubilee debates. And I hate the Jubilee debates because it legitimizes the ideas of these fascists. It brings credence to the the horrible things that they say.
And it's this idea that, profit incentives is the only thing that can make humans do things, get up out of bed every day, which has never been the case historically. It's not the case psychologically.
Historically, it's never been the case?
No.
What has been the case?
So we've seen...
What's been the incentive?
The incentive is intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic motivation?
Of course. Have you ever heard of intrinsic motivation?
Of course I have. So you
Okay.
think people are going to go just do anything for no incentive? So what's the alternative? So give me another solution, another
May I
economical
finish the
system.
talking
Yeah,
point?
actually,
Right,
I'm
awesome.
curious.
So yeah, the psychological theory of self-determination is widely accepted in psychology. It basically explains that intrinsic motivation and passion is actually what predicts incentive. You're arguing that incentive is integral to profit-driven motivation. That's not true. Intrinsic motivation, at all times, at every single case, is going to, predict less creativity, less motivation, less skill, etc. Intrinsic motivation is what causes things like technological development. Some of the greatest breakthroughs have been from people who are devoted in honing their skill.
What college did you go to? You went to USC? What did you major in? Who's your hero as a professor? Who's
The best way to deal with these people is to not give them a platform. And Jubilee does that. And so this particular debate was, I'm assuming it was a capitalist going up against a room full of communists. And as a communist, I I don't see any merit in arguing with people that don't value human life and would argue that, people deserve, there has to be a hierarchy. People deserve to be destitute. That's how it works. We know that capitalism requires poverty for it to work. We know that it requires destitution. We know that it requires people to maintain power. But I think a lot of people are so. There's been a calculated campaign by capitalists and capitalism, the system, to keep people in check. I'm not going to go into a really deep history lesson, but back in the mid 1900s, there was a calculated campaign by the United States to foment um, anger and disillusionment against communism. There was this idea that we have to disrupt communistic movements because capitalism doesn't like competition. And this is one of those things that confuses me. If capitalism is so great, why do you have to you have an entire arm of your capitalist regime that is there just to take down communists? I mean, if you think communism is going to fail, why not let it fail on its own? But neither here nor there. McCarthyism, the Red Scare, um, and we've gotten to this point in today's day and age where people base your value as a person on how much labor you can shell out, to the point where this is where we talk about how classism and racism, all of these things, all of these isms fit so well. They're hand in hand with white supremacy, right? So, under these systems of capitalism, classism is how you keep people pitted against one another. And you can see it in the way that people interact with one another based on the type of job that they have. So, someone who I work day and night busting my knuckles and I got calluses on my hands and my knees and and that burger flipper over there, they don't deserve a living wage. First of all, you as a blue collar worker who's doing, this sort of manual labor, you're not making the money that you should be for surviving. First and foremost, you're already, because of this system of capitalism we live in, no one is making the standard of living that they should be. Nobody's making that living wage. But because of how capitalism and classism pits us against other people, you are concerned with what someone else is making. Instead of looking at the capitalists, the 1% who are making these rules, making these issues, we're looking at the people below us that we consider below us and saying, that's not fair. They don't deserve that, which is ridiculous. So in this little Jubilee debate, there was a conversation going on, not a conversation. The capitalist guy, he was one of the stands of Charlie Kirk. Can't remember his name, but all I know is that he's loud and always yells over people. But he was essentially saying that your labor means the more labor you do, the more value you have as a person, which is ridiculous. And this is where I'm going to explain like who I am as a person and why I'm a communist. I believe that everyone has intrinsic value. Everyone deserves a living wage. Everyone deserves to be fed. Everyone deserves water. Everyone deserves a roof over their head. Everyone deserves the basic necessities to survive in today's day and age. And in today's day and age, you need a phone. You need internet access. You need transportation. I believe everyone deserves this. And people will go, well, who's going to pay for that? Well, we currently send billions and trillions to Israel. We currently send billions and trillions to our military. We could be paying for these things. We, as taxpayers, could be paying for people to have a baseline standard of living. But we refuse to, because under systems of capitalism, people are required to work. It's enslavement. It is enslavement. And I'm not going to compare it to chattel slavery, because in chattel slavery, you were not paid. You got a roof over your head and you got food. That was it. Under this system of capitalism, it is still a form of enslavement. You are forced to work to maintain a meager, if that, standard of living. And I think the reason that a lot of people are afraid to stand up against these systems that are oppressing us and keeping us in this classist warfare, this, racism is running rampant, KKK members out in the street snatching people up. I think the reason a lot of people are afraid to stand up and speak out against these things is because this system, it's not broken. This system of capitalism is not broken. It is working exactly as intended. You give people just enough to where they are not dead. They are dying. They are not dead yet. But They have just enough that they are afraid to lose it. They have just enough to say, ugh, I don't want to get out there and protest because what if I lose my job? Like most people are one paycheck away or one mishap or medical expense away from destitution, from being out on the street. Most people's paychecks go towards living expenses, go towards in America 2025, most people's paychecks go towards their housing. And that is a problem. That's a huge problem. And I hate getting bogged down in this, in philosophical debates. Well, this is not something it is feasible. It is very feasible. It's just that we refuse as a country, our government refuses to do this because capitalism has taught us that unless you are out there working, you are worthless. Which is it's mind-boggling to me because there's so much nuance to this conversation. There are so many people who don't have the ability to work and they want to work. There are so many people who work but they aren't able to do the same type of physical labor that other people do. And yet they are deemed as lesser than because they can't do XYZ sort of work. And don't get me started on the other conversation that they were having on this Jubilee debate is that if people's needs are taken care of, no one is going to want to work. Everyone's going to be lazy. There's no incentive. Capitalism has taught us that the only way people will work is for money, which is a lie. How do you think native cultures survived before the introduction of racism and white supremacy? Before colonizers came in? How do you think native cultures in the Americas, in Africa, in Asia survived? Hmm? There may have been a monetary system, but many of these cultures were communist in nature. This was, well before the term communism was coined, but humanity has always been communistic in nature. Because what you break down the word communism, it's a commune, it's community. People living in a shared space, sharing with one another. Native cultures, before this introduction of capitalism, weren't worried about, okay, are you going to be able to pay rent? Because I'm going to have to kick you out of your dwelling if you're not able to pay rent this month. People were more concerned with are you doing well? How are you and the children? How can I help you? And that is, I think, intrinsically, this is human nature. I think humanity has infected who we are as human beings and has taught us over time that this can't happen. That this is that community and caring for one another and that these things are not a viable way to live life. We've been lied to for a very long time to believe that the ways of living that we had before are not feasible. And that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. There are still cultures today. Colonial nature of the colonial nature of human beings, palm colored people mostly. They have tried to reach out to every corner of the globe. There's I think it's Sentinelese people. I think it is. There's an island that has. I mean, they had contact with the outside world at one point, and then they just basically cut off contact with the outside world. And I can guarantee you those people are not living as capitalists, worried about, how much profit they're making. They are cut off from the outside world, living comfortably amongst themselves, surviving without, the new age technology and whatnot. And I think that's another reason, or another thing, that a lot of people um, are have this mindset about. They think that unless a society is has the latest technology, that they are savages, that they are behind the times, that they can't live life to the fullest, which is another lie that's been told to us by capitalism and white supremacy. Now, earlier I did say that I believe that people need a basic, that basic standard of living, and they deserve to have access to things like internet and phones and things like that. And I only say that because we, Black folks such as myself, are forced to live in the United States. We were brought here against our will. Our ancestors were stripped of their heritage, and we literally don't know where we come from. We had to build everything on our own culture here. So my home technically is here because everything that I know of, everything that we came from, is here. And so I believe that people who are forced to be in this space deserve to have access to the things that will allow us to live comfortably in this space, right? And I really, like I said before, I'm not trying to get into, you know, doctrine and dogma and things like that. These things are possible. Your value as a human being is not based on how much labor you can do, not in any way, shape, or form. And back to that conversation, there are people who are disabled, and it is mind boggling to me to watch people who would consider themselves rational human beings talk down to disabled people, especially disabled people who don't have a physical, in your face manifestation of disability. It's mind boggling to watch people look at them and say, you know, the reason that you're in the place that you're in is because you refuse to work harder. Oh, I understand you're disabled, air quotes, but you got to be able to figure out something. We've lost. Capitalism requires a lack of empathy. That's why you see people like Charlie Kirk and other conservatives, Republicans, and things like that harping on this idea of a toxic empathy. You humans are naturally empathetic. We naturally want to take care of one another. We naturally want to work with one another. But capitalism has brainwashed us into thinking that the only person that matters is me, myself, and I, my nuclear family, and that's it. And that goes into another conversation about rampant individualism and how the nuclear family, the idea of the nuclear family, is inherently racist. Whew, boy, howdy. We could get into that conversation a little bit later. But community has always been about your family, you, and everyone that you reside with. But capitalism has taught us the only people that matter is us, first and foremost, and then our immediate family that lives with us in our house. Our neighbors are nothing of consequence. You've heard the phrase, it takes a village. All of this leaks into how the differences with how children are being raised today and how they were raised in yesteryear. Obviously, technology and things have gotten better, and things are, cultural norms are different. But there is a difference in how the family structure is set up versus how it used to be. And in some ways, this is a good thing. In some ways, this is a bad thing. One of those bad ways is that we no longer prioritize the well being of the community. Unless you're a wealthy person and you're worried about, my kids got to go to I got to worry about my neighborhood because this isn't an affluent community. Oh my God. That's another tangent I could go on about how public schools in the United States are funded by the property tax of your area. So if you are able to afford a wealthy and affluent area, the schools of your children will be wealthy and affluent. Ooh, but capitalism has done a number on us. We think that our value comes from how much labor we can put out. I say, as a communist and as a black person who has seen people like me hurt, disenfranchised, and put down because of the color of our skin, I believe that everyone deserves a healthy standard of living. And with that healthy standard of living, you will get more productivity. It's already been proven. Other countries do this. When people are paid more, when there's less stress on, the day in, day out of work, people are more productive. But it is it's more profitable for the 1% in capitalist countries like the United States to have this system. That's why there will never be any discussion about how we can make these things better. If people's needs were met, people would be more productive. If people's needs were met, they would be able to pursue their passions. And that means people would be able to pursue jobs that they may not have the time to study for. They may not have the time to learn. They may not have the time to get into that particular niche. This capitalist idea is that, oh no, everybody would go be lazy, stay at home, or they would focus on one particular thing. They would all be artists or something. No, that's ridiculous. I think a lot of being someone who was, unemployed at one point and looking for a job, I can tell you that I wanted to be productive. I wanted to do something. And it wasn't just because I wanted to make money. It was because I wanted to be out. I didn't want to sit at home all day. And even if there are people that want to sit home all day, that is your right. I want to be very clear. Even if you don't want to do anything, even if you want to be home all day, even if you want to be a couch potato, you are still a human being and you deserve a healthy standard of living. Capitalism has taught us that you don't. I believe that you deserve a healthy standard of living no matter your situation. Point blank, period. That's who I am as a person. I believe everyone has value. I believe everyone deserves to be treated as a human being. Now, obviously, I'm not counting Nazis and fascists. They don't deserve anything. They broke the social contract. But we as human beings really need to have a kumbaya. I'm not saying that we all need to come together and talk about this and we got to vote. No, the only I want to be very clear about this as well. The only language that oppressors speak is that of violence. Am I calling for it? We will not see change until we speak the oppressor's language. I'll put it that way. We deserve a healthy standard of living. It is not us that's holding us back from being better. I mean, it's us in the way that, we need to take these systems of power and burn them. But the 1% have made these systems the way that they are. And they have told us, they've lied to us for centuries and told us that things cannot be better. All you have to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There are no bootstraps. They literally have taken our shoes from us. They have all the shoes. It's the reason this podcast is called, we have the tagline, about dragons. We're dealing with dragons who hoard wealth. Do they use it? Nope, not at all. They just sit on top of it and sleep all day. They call us lazy. That's funny. All right, friends. That's my little rant for the day. Go do something productive. Drink some water. Take your meds. And know that you are loved and appreciated. You deserve to be treated as a human being, no matter who you are, unless you're a fascist. Then you deserve nothing. Have a day.